following consultation with key stakeholders.
I guess for context, Lord Mayor, the officer's response is positive and it's well researched and it's good. That almost forms the basis of the submission. So, yeah.
Okay. And so then do we still need items 2 and 3? Because I'm not sure Legat and those, are you still wanting those ones as well? Or just the...
Challenging to go out.
Look, I guess, why would I put those in? If you're going to make a submission, it helps to get regional partners on board and stuff and say, look, it's not just of benefit to Hobart as a council, it's more Tasmania and Hobart broadly. So, I mean, normally I would suggest that if we were to do something, you'd visa partners we talk to on a day-to-day basis anyway. If it helps, I'm happy to get rid of that from the motion and just have it support the CEO to organise a submission. If the CEO wishes to talk to others, it's up to the CEO.
Limited time, it is quite
Yep.
challenging. Okay, so is everyone clear on what we're doing now?
Again, yeah.
So look, I've got dotted down here as the proposed amendment, empower the CEO to make a submission to the ACCC on Council's behalf following discussion with stakeholders. I think that kind of covers the field.
Yeah, that'll do.
It's sufficiently loose to give you the...
So I think that, though, is being accepted in by the mover as a change. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So it's not an amendment as such, it's a modified motion.
Whoever the seconder is happy.
Councillor Elliott? Okay, is everyone clear now? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. It is 7:30 and that was when, are people happy to have a break for dinner now? So maybe 10 to 8 come back?
What we got?
Quarter to 8 come back. It's just, we've got about 4 more motions plus a closed council meeting plus questions. So how about if we just do a quick dinner of 15 minutes or do you want to just keep going?
Dinner would be good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. A bit longer.
We need dinner.
Yeah, I think it's going to be try and stick to 7:30.
I think we're ahead of schedule that I was anticipating anyway.
and our first item is a motion.
Always good to read.
One from
I'm
Alderman
going home.
Bloomfield.
Look, this motion is in response to recent public commentary surrounding the refusal by the Planning Committee of a development application at Argyle Street. Now, since this motion was tabled, the developers have established contact with a number of us, and I believe mediation, one of the primary issues that was raised at our debate, is actually back on the table. And I believe that for now, this motion is better served by being put to deferral, so that the mediation and final outcome might occur unhindered. It also allows for the consideration, I would like to think, of suitable education program for both elected members, members of state, parliament and general public about the place and role and function of planning meetings, so that we never have to see that behaviour again.
Sorry, Alderman Bloomfield, I'm confused.
I'm asking for a deferral.
Lapse it and bring it back next time.
Procedural motion for
If you don't
deferral.
move it, it just lapses. Are you moving it or
Oh,
not?
okay, well, I'll move it, but don't I have to ask for a deferral, or that's additional?
Withdraw.
You just withdraw it and put it up next time you want to put it up. You don't have to ask for, you're the mover. If you don't want to put it forward, it just lapses. And you put it up again next time.
Well, then I'll put it forward then, thank you.
In this meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll need a seconder. Councillor Elliott. Did you want to speak to it more than what you have, Councillor Bloomfield?
I think I've been quite clear in where I fit with this. I would like to hope that someone else in the room will actually choose to now defer it. Thank you.
Sorry, I think there's confusion around the procedure. So if you want it deferred, it's just, you just don't put it. That's how it works.
I'm going to move a motion for deferral in light of what Alderman Bloom said around the negotiations with the applicant. Just defer this till next month's meeting, please.
All right. So we would need another person to defer it if they.
Other than Councillor Elliott?
Yes. She's the second.
Yeah, look, whether it's lapsed, withdrawn, deferred, I don't think really matters. So if I can't move it for lapsing or thingy because I'm not a mover, I guess I can move deferral.
You can, if you want to. I need a seconder for a deferral motion. No, you can't do it as well. Councillor Kelly. So that's a procedural motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Say no.
No.
Show of hands, all those in favour of deferral?
Favour of deferral, Elliott. Can't see your hand, Councillor Purcell.
Down.
Down. Coates, Lohberger, Bloomfield, Kelly. For the alternative, so Dutta, Purcell, Kitsos, Harvey, the Deputy and the Mayor.
Okay, so we'll.
So it's a question through you. Can the motion now be withdrawn, or has it already been done at the start?
Yeah, no, I think it has to be proceeded with now. Okay, so Alderman Bloomfield, did you want to say anything further?
Planning is profoundly different to this room. In this room we have politics, we have politicking, we have debate, and we bring in points of view from outside to discuss, and then we vote. In planning, it is prescribed. Prescribed being that there is legislation, it is limited, and we must comply with very, very defined behaviours, motions, and come out with an outcome. It becomes more professional than it does political. As a result, it quite disappointed me to find that politics entered the debate post the meeting, and many of us were, I would say, spoken of inappropriately, given it was planning a professional point. If I was, for instance, to turn a blind eye and vote a different way in a planning meeting, and I behaved like that as a tax agent with the similar expectation of following prescribed law, I would lose my tax licence. So I follow the same behavioural traits in that I look at what I have in front of me, I apply the law to the best of my ability, and I make a decision. I do not expect, and I certainly do not do, apply politics to the end point. And I found it very disappointing that many people who would have known better, who should have known better, decided to apply behavioural traits better found in chamber than found in a planning. I genuinely believe that education is profoundly required. I do believe that the planning decision that was made with every best intent of every person in that room, and it should have been respected as such. And that following forward, as per my request for deferral, education is now going to be quite prominent, I believe, in our near future. So I would request, as prescribed in this thing, that, you know, if since the room does not want a deferral and would prefer that we in fact send forth the letters, so be it. But frankly, would I do whatever I have done in the past again? Absolutely I would, because integrity to me matters more than politics, and I absolutely do not give a toss about optics and looking good. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Yeah, the recent situation with the social housing development really highlighted for me how little understanding, particularly the community and the media and some elected members and some politicians have around the different hat we wear when it comes to planning and what's in and out of scope. And I've provided some feedback to the CEO around, I think, ways we might be able to prevent a situation like that again. But also, Alderman Zuko isn't here, but he also has a motion at number 25 around returning to a two-step planning process, which I think is beneficial and was really highlighted in that St Vincent de Paul determined that St Vincent de Paul decision recently would have prevented a situation like that. It was really concerning to see that the council made a majority decision, but it was branded as that decision was undermined by the decision being referred to as council made a mistake. It was also really disappointing to see insinuations that there was some sort of conspiracy around the voting on that, like smelling a rat, around some sort of trying to imply that it was some sort of planned activity for the purpose of removing planning from council, which is actually well before this motion, this planning decision. I wholeheartedly support planning being removed from councils. I have for years, and even more so after the experience of St Vincent de Paul's, because it's really disturbing to think that some elected members make planning decisions based on optics. I think that completely undermines the entire planning framework and means that no one is treated fairly. We have to make decisions based on the planning scheme and what's in and out of scope, and that example with St Vincent de Paul's was a really horrible decision, but like Alderman Bloomfield, I knew I had to choose between the optics versus what my true judgment was on the actual planning assessment. So for me, this isn't really around, the lesser part is the backlash and the abuse coming, into your inbox, telling you that you're heartless and you have no empathy and you don't care about women. This is really around the lack of understanding that is around planning framework and how it is so different to the hats we wear when we're not representing the community, when we're acting as a planning authority. And the two roles are just a complete conflict, and that's why I support planning being removed from councils, and that's even more evident when we have our own elected members saying there's sort of conspiracies around smelling rats and does anyone else think this is a bit dodgy. And to be honest, also the Lord Mayor saying that we made a mistake. It's a really disappointing situation.
Councillor Harvey.
Lord Mayor, I hope we don't labour this too long, but just a couple of points. Firstly, the decision was based on optics. What a lot of rubbish that is. The decision was based on the planning scheme and the recommendation from the officers who recommended this particular development for approval. That's not optics, that's just the facts of the matter. There's been a lot of controversial planning applications over the years in my time on council, and I know some people in the room had a great ability to produce a meme even before the end of the planning meeting that would be criticising people in the room who voted differently to them. And at times I've seen, one particular meme really sticks in my mind. It was like 8 of us voted for something and 2 voted against it, and the meme was, it's outrageous, all of these people didn't get it right. And we saw that regularly, and we're all, and I think you were a victim of a lot of these memes as well, Lord Mayor. So what we develop is a thick skin, it's politics, so we've got to understand that we're politicians, even though I like to think of myself as a community representative, but this is still politics. And what happens in the room over time is that things get heated, decisions get made, people criticise those decisions, and then we move on. But in this situation, it seems some people can't move on. They made the decision at the time against the officer's recommendation. They were criticised for it at the time, and now they're reliving it. So it sounds like fairly regularly, but we've moved on from that, and a good outcome, what I believe will be a reversal of that decision, will occur in the near future. But I don't think, we all need to apologise for something that occurred, or we need to write letters, or we need to criticise people for criticising you. That's really not the way it works. Politics, if you want to play politics, you go through processes, people make statements, you get picked on sometimes, you get put down sometimes, other times it's reverse roles. And I can say as a Green, over the years, we've probably copped the most of anyone in the room at times when there were really, not even before memes, we were criticised all the time. And when you look at the comments on the Mercury, any opportunity people have to criticise the Green Woke Council happens endlessly. People in this room have called us woke on a number of occasions, and you let it roll. You don't get upset and ask for apologies, or sometimes it does go to code of conduct. But generally speaking, you've got to have a thick skin if you want to play politics. If you haven't got a thick skin, then go and do something else. But I won't be supporting the motion tonight because I think it's just not, it's not important to me. People say things, people do things, but I support the council officers nearly all the time. There's only been probably 2 occasions when a big development's come forward and I've voted against it. One of them was a recommendation in next to Collegiate in Macquarie Street, where the majority of the votes said no to that one. It was recommended for approval, but that just it moved on, and I think it's been subsequently approved. So anyway, I won't be supporting this tonight, and I think we all need to have a particular type of thick skin if we want to do politics, if we want to be representatives of council, and don't let things get to you, move on.
Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Chair. So I was contacted by a representative of St Vinny's. I've been contacted, I think a number of us have, and I've organised to attend a meeting to discuss mediation. I think that's fantastic news. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm aware that the proposal is currently before the tribunal, where it is going through mediation with objectors as well. I really, I don't support this particular motion. My big focus in this particular issue is just that that building comes back to us and that we all are able to still talk to each other and work with each other after this occurs. I think that's important. I think Councillor Harvey has made some good points about having a thick skin. But yeah, I'm just awaiting that proposal coming back to us. I'm really looking forward to it, and I won't be supporting this particular motion. Thank you.
Discussion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, is there politics in planning decisions? I guess that's one of the questions, subtext tonight. there shouldn't be. We're not asked to take that into consideration. You know, we're allowed to put forward our views. We're allowed to put forward and campaign and ask for the support of our fellow citizens in voting us in. But then under the Act, we're asked to sit as a planning scheme, as a planning committee to implement a planning scheme and to judge applications on the merit on their merit against the criteria. And look, it's tough. Maybe some of us do have a very thick skin, and that might help them get through. But you know, it doesn't help when people are attacked for decisions they make, or you know, things like, oh, the applicant was this, therefore we should have, or this was this, or I mean, I can remember voting against a hospital development because I genuinely thought it didn't comply with the planning scheme, notwithstanding my personal views of that development. I remember the one next to Collegiate, similar thing. You know, you've officers have a recommendation. Sometimes the planning committee doesn't agree with that recommendation. Oftentimes there are representations and views put forward by respondents, and often they're experts in their own right as well, but are at odds. And you're put in a funny position in a way, where you've got, on one hand, I've got a professional planner who's put forward a submission opposing a development, and on the other hand, I've got a professional planner on staff recommending a development. You know, which professional do you believe? And so, you know, I think hopefully when you read through the list of what Alderman Bloomfield's proposed, you know, I don't actually genuinely think a lot of it is controversial. Most of it's just sort of noting what's happened. It's a statement of fact. In my mind, though, it's probably that 0.6, 0.7. You know, much of the commentary is happening by members of the public who are dissatisfied with the outcome for whatever reason, and we can't expect members of the public to necessarily understand all the intricacies and also they just sort of see the outcome, if you like. I remember when Councillor Harvey voted to approve Airbnb applications because we'd lost multiple at tribunal, and unfortunately he was then attacked for ripping away housing and rentals and supporting Airbnb. Now, nothing could be further from the truth. I genuinely believe Councillor Harvey was just applying the planning scheme. And dare I say it, putting the best interests of the city forward, because it is at significant cost when these things end up at tribunal unnecessarily. You know, I've seen many a decision where I personally know that the councillor is of the other view, but votes in their interpretation of the planning scheme. And so, look, I think that number 6, where it's noting there is a bit of anger in the community, that's appropriate for us to recognise. And as a council we can say that. And then I think it is, however, also then equally valid to say, well, hold on a second, there are people that should know better, ought to know better, and we sometimes need to just, maybe it might not be for our sake. I mean, I've got some thick skin. Councillor Harvey's obviously got some thick skin, developed over many years on planning committees, no doubt. But, you know, I've never seen such a big campaign for Northern Territory tourism, to put it bluntly. And you know, I wasn't even at that planning committee and I was getting emails attacking me. You know, there was just for better or worse, there was a whirlwind. And, you know, it's not nice. It personally impacts people, personally impacts people's family members. It is something that I think us, you know, a few weeks later as a council can reflect on and say, well, you know, we're not going to relitigate the decision that was made. But it is appropriate for us to, you know, in a calm, collected manner, write and say, you know, when the next planning decision comes out that you don't personally agree with, please understand that the people making that decision are not making it on their personal views. They're making it on considered views, having considered all the information that was presented to them at the meeting. You know, some of that runs to hundreds of pages, it says in here. And often you'll have conflicting professional views as well. So, look,
30 seconds.
I think it's a response from the council to what's happened. I think it's a measured response. And I think, if anything, it'll just give some people a little bit of a pause to reflect. And you know, the next time a contentious decision comes, because there will be some, hopefully we just don't see that sort of whirlwind of attacks and animosity. And, you know, I'm with Councillor Harvey on this, which is, you know, sometimes we're put in invidious situations and you shouldn't need a thick skin to be able to do this job. You know, we should have people of the public. Thanks.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly.
Age before beauty.
So here we are tonight, and we're talking about, just because something was wrong in the past, and they had a bad decision against them, we've got to toughen up and we've got to take it. What a fantastic way of behaving that is. Totally irrational and illogical. The wrongs, so therefore the wrongs of the past, they're not going to justify now from what happens. And here we have a council tonight, we've got to do the right thing and talk about menopause and breastfeeding and all these things, which are great things as well. But it's quite okay to go out and slag out and pile on your fellow elected members who, in good conscience, have made a thoroughly legal decision based purely on the law, and then to be dumped by your own elected members, social media, double-page article in the Mercury, radio, TV. It's just appalling. I think this council's, there's a new low bar has been set for the behaviour and for the, who in their right minds would want to stand for council seeing this sort of behaviour. So you come along, you look at the legislation under the local planning scheme and the Tasmanian Planning Act and all that, and you don't base it on gender, race, or you don't discriminate on anyone. You make a morally and legally correct decision, and you are absolutely lambasted for it. From the Federal Minister for Housing, to the State Minister for Housing, to federal politicians, to state government politicians, to our Lord Mayor, to our Deputy Lord Mayor, to fellow elected members, absolutely vilified. From the CEO of St Vincent's to the solicitor for the Tenants' Union, and I could keep going on. And why? Because we made a decision that was morally and legally correct. And this is a disgraceful and a disgusting situation for anyone to stand up and try and justify it or say, toughen up. It's just appalling. Here we got the elected member behaviour, all these glossy documents, everything we talk about here, it's about being fair and respecting and all that, and to be publicly vilified on something that we made in the best and true intentions, taking into account all the things, just because the planning officers say something is recommended, and as Councillor Hobart said to him, he doesn't always take notice of that. That's why we're here. If we're not here, why have us? That's why the mechanism is here. If that's the case, take it out and give it to someone else to do. Just cut us right out of the thing. But as long as we're still in the game for it, surely we shouldn't be criticised for making decisions. I just can't say how upset I am about this whole thing. I've expressed my sentiments to people. I've shut up a fair bit about it to most people. Haven't gone feral in the public and all that sort of stuff. The sad thing is everyone misses out here. And to use the most marginalised people in society as pawns for people's own little political games is very, very sad.
What's the point of order?
Offensive comments. We're not using the people who would potentially live in this development as pawns. This is implying that this is all about politics. It's not. It was about the planning scheme. I think the comment was offensive and it should be withdrawn.
Councillor Kelly, would you consider withdrawing that?
No.
I think you should make a determination that he should withdraw, Lord Mayor. It's offensive. We're not using them as pawns. No one's been used as pawns.
I've got it. Thanks, Councillor Harvey. I think it is pretty unfair, but it's probably would come under general political commentary, unfortunately.
Okay.
Toughen up.
Thicker than some, eh? Yeah.
Toughen up.
Yeah.
And what have we learned from the last 200 years? 200 years ago, we put the most marginalised of our society, female convicts, in South Hobart in the female factory surrounded by high walls.
Point of order. Relevance?
I want to see where he's going with it first, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, at least I might go through the whole lot. So I know what I'm doing.
Fast forward to Stainforth Court, Windsor Court. we get the most marginalised people in our society, we herd them into one group and we put them under the one roof. 2 weeks ago, the most marginalised people in our society, single females in need over the age of 55, we herd them together, we put them together under one roof in a commercial zone away from the mainstream of society. This council and us as a society have learnt absolutely nothing.
30 seconds.
And to go forward further with this sort of commentary is an insult, I think, to all elected members, the most marginalised in society, and we've learnt absolutely nothing. And for people to try and justify their actions, I find quite appalling.
I think Councillor Possop was up first. Oh, but yeah, Councillor Dunner did.
He did.
Raise before.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Now, I just want to begin by making a number of observations. Firstly, past wrongs indeed doesn't make it right for us to continue that behaviour. But my understanding with that is simply using it as an example that many of us have been through the same process and meal, as it were, and suffered the same sort of fate. Just an example to say we have a lived experience. That's all we're saying. My lived experience, I was identified as the king of anti-development. The queen of anti-development is no longer here. She's moved on. People came to my cafe and personally attacked me. They put graffiti on my building just because I voted against a number of planning things and the Crowther statue. A number of customers came to me and said, no longer I will come to your cafe. Not that I have a thick skin, but maybe I've got a black skin or a brown skin, I don't know. And therefore mine is a bit more dirtier and I'm able to take it. All what I'm saying is that I'm simply sharing this thing. If it is wrong, we need to call it out. But for me and for others, we're simply using our experience to say we suffered the same fate. That's all I'm saying. Point number two, is it politics or is it planning? If we are really honest with ourselves, there are times when we have taken a political decision instead of a planning decision, and only our conscience knows that. Only you and I will know that, and no one else. We can justify that no way, when I had that hat on as a planning authority, I made the decisions on that particular basis. Only you and I know how politics enters this particular arena. Point number three is this, that if the majority of the decision has been made, then that's the decision of the council. And that's a decision we have to support. That is my understanding. Now, I can go on and talk about a number of other points made, but I haven't got the time to do that. But let me just reflect on the motion. The motion here is very simple and clear. Number one, note the recent decision was refused by the planning committee. Now, it is already noted in the minutes. It was refused. Point number two, it was refused on planning ground. Yes, again, Regulation 25(2) states that very clearly, that if you make a decision, you must supply reasons for it. And so that, again, has been noted in the minutes. The reasons have been given. And the reasons were very clear. I've read it. I wasn't here, unfortunately. But the reasons were clear. It appeared that there were three reasons given. It was height, it was access, and there was a third one with regards to parking. Right? Those were the three reasons given. And that's, again, noted, and it's been there in the minutes. Point number three, it says it's a statutory role, and therefore we put on the hat of a planning authority. And I, as a chair of the planning committee, constantly remind people, because it's on the agenda, that now I refer you to Regulation 25 of the meetings procedure, and we are now putting on the planning hat, and therefore we need to do that. So that's already noted there. Number four, again, it's a professional planner could be found. In my view, it is my understanding, when a staff recommends a decision, and it is voted against the decision, they can't go to the tribunal and then take a different stand. In the cross-examination, they will be hammered, and they will be made a fool of. You said no in the recommendation, and now you are saying yes. It doesn't gel. So it is my understanding that never have the staff taken a particular position with regards to the. I need 2 or 3 minutes. 3 minutes, please.
It's moved by Councillor Coates, seconded by Councillor Posselt. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously.
Yeah. So we need a professional planner, and this is the case all the time. If the planning staff have, from their expert experience, recommends to us that we go along and support this, and we go contrary to that, all of us have done that a number of times. And we can't then, just because people have gone the other way, to criticize the decision. I think that's the point we need to be careful of. Number 5, note that since the decision, there has been consistent, personal attacks. And I've already made the comment. If you take 5, 6, and 7 together, definitely, people will do that. You and I will know that. If we make a decision and people don't like it, they will attack us. On Facebook, they talk to you personally and constantly. Now, I don't know if you need thick skin or whatever, but we need to develop some management, some strategy as to how we have to deal with it, because it's going to happen. We've got another 2.5+ years to go, and it's going to happen constantly. The other point in there is that, again, if people are making these comments, there is an issue with regards to democracy and freedom of speech. If they want to do that, then I think we can't really tell these people you can't. Number 8, right to the members of the parliament. Now, I find that, why should we write to the members of parliament? Because there are only some of them. So, writing to the members of parliament really is not the way to go. And if we want to write to the members of some of them who made this comment, then if we can take that individually and write to them and tell them not to do that. So on the basis of this, I think a number of these points have already been minuted, it's already been done, and it's been noted. And all what I want to finish off by saying is that those of us who, in the planning meeting, are in the minority, then it is our role to support the majority, because that's the council view. Because we have in the past found ourselves green, red, yellow, whatever it is, constantly. And I'm sure I see this particular term of the elected members much better, 90% better than what it was in the last term. And I can vouch for that, having the lived experience. So we have lifted the bar. Let's play that game and respect each other for the decisions they make. Thank you.
Further discussion, Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll keep this brief. I fully endorse Councillor Lohberger's comments. I think that he's nailed many of the points. But I did want to pick up on one point that Councillor Kelly made, which was receiving criticism for making decisions, that we shouldn't be subject to criticism of our decision making. I'm not sure what that says about democracy, frankly. Every single public figure, every single politician, every single decision-making organisation should 100% be criticised for making decisions. And in this world, not everybody is going to agree with you. That's why we have an election of 12 councillors that come to this chamber with various life experience and varied viewpoints. And we recognise, if you've ever gone on commercial radio and tried to sell the merits of protected bike lanes, you realise that there's a fair bit of criticism out there from certain cohorts, especially when you're selling protected bike lanes to tradies in utes on their way to work. It's part of the gig, it's part of the job, but it all comes back to accountability. If you have made a decision, you need to own that decision and you need to accept the criticism. Now, when people at the level of Federal Housing Minister and State Housing Minister who come from opposing political sides of the spectrum come out against your decision, you need to accept that there is criticism from people that have a valid viewpoint and are educated on the matter. They have a right to criticise the council for their decision. There is no problem with that. If individual elected members wish to write to the federal and state ministers for housing and convey their distaste with the way that has been communicated, they can do so privately. But for a council to write to a federal minister and say, can you please not be so mean to us, is a pretty ridiculous concept, I must say. But I'll bring it back to accountability. We must be held accountable. Hold me accountable for my decisions. I'm happy to be held accountable and I'm happy to justify and explain them, bearing in mind that not everybody will agree. But I think that if you're not willing to accept a degree of accountability for sitting in these chairs, making decisions that affect every user and every ratepayer in this city, then I don't think you should be here.
Any further discussion? Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'm just going to touch on a few points, I suppose. Just with regards to points 1 to 7 of the motion, it starts with note, those various different things, 1 to 7. Yep, noted. I'll move on to the next thing, which is I agree with what Councillor Lohberger said, and I think he put it eloquently, and I won't expand on that any further. There was a comment made, it shouldn't be the case that people are attacked for the decisions they made. Absolutely you should. That's the privilege of living in a democratic country. Do you know how many people don't live in a democratic country? They would really, really love that. Where they can go and they can actually say, no, I don't agree with what the people in power have said. That is a freedom that
Point of
we are
information.
afforded in this.
Point of information. Point of order, sorry, no point of information. A point of order. Look, I think it's a bit of a misrepresentation.
That's not point of order.
Misrepresentation, not point of order.
You've got to keep the sheet next to you.
I can lend it to you if you like. That was a beautiful point of order. Perhaps it did try to take me off track, but I will come back to what I was saying, which was that we are afforded that freedom in a democratic country. And a point of order doesn't need to be made on that. We're very lucky. If you've ever gone and lived somewhere else or know people from various different places that haven't had that luxury, that's unfortunate, but the fact still remains. We're very lucky. And of course, our decisions are going to be criticised. That's the very reason why we're here. We're making decisions for other individuals. We're representatives of our community. And as such, sometimes some people within those different pockets of community will not like the decisions that we make. And that's, again, about accountability, as Councillor Posselt has outlined. The Deputy Lord Mayor absolutely vilified you. I'll tell you what I said. Don't really consider it absolute vilification of another individual. I said, disappointed that the majority voted against the qualified advice of our planning staff and refused social housing communal residence for women over the age of 55. That's not vilification, that's fact. I also went on to make other comments which were actually related to some misinformation about this particular permit or application, which was the claim that this development would not have passed if it was a private development. Yeah, not entirely correct if you actually look at what was outlined by our qualified planning staff. 23 car spaces, again, that was raised. I addressed that as well. There's so much more that I addressed in here factually. Do you still want more information? I went to talk about why it was deferred. Do you want more information? I went to talk about why UDAP is not part of the statutory process. That's not vilification, that's facts. And wow, it'd really be a sad day where facts are considered absolute vilification. You okay?
Laughing.
Laughing at you.
No, not at that.
That's okay.
Just
You're
that.
laughing at me, that's all right.
No, I wasn't laughing at you.
All right,
Just that. That's the situation I'm in.
Point of order, interrupting me.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was
You win.
right. Continue, please,
Thank you.
Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. So I think it's really, really important that, as I think has already been outlined, we wear different hats. And it was a real struggle in the beginning for me as well, having those different hats. And I can totally appreciate Councillor Elliott's point about that. But there was this amazing graph that came out. It was a stellar graph contained some misrepresentation, some misinformation. But again, it was about our decisions made as a planning authority. And I'm really delighted that Councillor Elliott has raised the fact that she now understands that those decisions are made with different hats. And the fact that we need to clarify that. And I think it's a beautiful realisation to come to, because in the future when planning decisions are made, we will all respect the fact that they're made on planning grounds, and people have the ability to exercise their discretion under the statute. So all in all, while I really do appreciate the beautiful sentiment of this motion, I do also think that it's really kind of inappropriate for us to perhaps ask for an apology for individuals who have made their point clear in the democratic process. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Kitsos.
Look, I wanted to just draw some attention to something that Councillor Kelly, Alderman Kelly, said that I just can't let slide. So we've heard tonight how we wear a different hat in our role in planning committee and how we work within the planning scheme and the officer's recommendations and make our viewpoints known, and that this was not to do with politics. And yet, towards the end of that statement, there was something about rounding women up and putting them all together under one roof, and haven't we learnt from our past mistakes about how we treat these vulnerable groups? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that has anything to do with the planning scheme.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, would you like to sum up at all, Councillor?
Thank you, I would.
Alderman Banfield.
You know, it's funny, Councillor Poston and I often have debates, very lively ones on Twitter, and I've never minded them because they've always been kept quite professional, to be honest. We debate points, and we debate very different points to each other, and I think we learn from each other quite often. That's fine. But when you get things like what you're saying is those homeless women deserve to stay homeless because that's the outcome here, there is no alternative proposal, that stopped being appropriate, didn't it? And that's the kind of thing that started happening. And frankly, the reason why I took exception is because I am used to having people disagree with me. Hell, you try telling someone in a tax practice, sorry, you cannot have that tax deduction this week, and I know it's going to cost you a lot of money, sorry. You might go, sorry, that's just how it is. I'm pretty used to that, and I'm pretty used to having people accuse, abuse, and all the rest of it. Not a problem. But I expect more from you. I expect more from every individual in this room, because all of us are in the same damn box. All of us have to do the same job, and I expect a modicum of respect from each of you. You know, I actually have tried darn hard, you know, once elected, understanding what this role was, because from the outside, I don't think we ever really do. You know, we take lead from example, and the examples that we get in this community are from us. If we don't act appropriately, how the hell do we expect anyone else to respect us? So when the Lord Mayor started the lead with, oh, I think the council made a mistake, but didn't actually supply the council's position, it started a chain, because the Deputy Lord Mayor started, and then Councillor Apostle started, and then everyone else outside started. This is on us. This is on this council. This is why I felt education. I didn't actually, like you heard me say, I wanted to defer this motion. You wanted to debate it. We are debating.
That's your time.
Thank you.
Alderman Bloomfield. Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Against say no.
No.
All those in favour.
Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield, Kelly,
Against.
Dutter, Passelt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the Deputy and the Mayor.
That's motion's not carried, and we'll move on now to motion number 22 by Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move the motion in my name.
Seconded by Councillor Lohberger.
Look, thank you. Look, this is a relatively simple motion. It's really come about. I was at a time. I had a lot of people contact me. There's a bit of confusion in the community. as you all know, there was a highly publicised vote that went to the public back in October 2022. And then obviously at the most recent election there were multiple policy positions put out by multiple parties, and we got the end result of a state election. And I guess I find myself well known to some that I'm a member of the Liberal Party, and obviously that I'm a member of this council, although not as a Liberal endorsed candidate. I think there was a general bit of confusion in the community as to what is the current position. Most people, I think, had a general understanding that it was a fairly substantial no vote when the elector poll happened, and obviously then council, I wasn't there at the time, but I had to look it up, so council accepted that at the subsequent council meeting, and so at the time I suggested, maybe we should put out a media release or something to better inform the community debate, and I was advised that no, bring it as a motion. So that's the provenance of where this has come from. I guess it's pretty simple. I probably don't need to step through it, but we accept the results. We know the position that the various parties took, and I think the key one here is, so the group that built up the elector poll was the Save UTAS group, as many of you know, and they in the course of that campaign put out a media release educating the community as part of the election as to how those policies lined up with the position of the elector poll. And I've had to go back to people personally and say, well, yes, that's the Liberal Party's position they took to the election, but council is a different organisation. We don't just accept whatever the state government of the day says, and we have never resolved to support their position. And I guess this motion just sort of backs that up. So, look, I think there are a lot of members of the community that are still concerned that the result of the elector poll, they don't necessarily see the evidence on the ground. They probably look at developments happening in the CBD and they hear stories of this faculty is going to be there and this one's going to be here and whatever. And I think ultimately, sometimes as a council, it's our role to sort of clearly state where we are as their representatives, as their local government. And I think we do have a role to play. We are a community representative group. And we did ultimately have the ultimate consultation, which was a poll of the electors, and that's not even 2 years old. So, and very current. And obviously, given all the talk in the state election, when it comes to the UTAS issue, that is still a huge issue for our community and our city and our council. So, look, it's some would say it's almost a waste of time because it's just reiterating what our current position is. But I found there was a lot of confusion. I think there was some confusion even with elected members. I was a little bit confused when some people came back to me and said, oh no, we'd never voted on that. But I was like, oh, but I'm looking at the minutes, and they accepted the result at the next meeting. So, look, a relatively simple one, and I think for the 74% of people in the city of Hobart that very firmly gave an indication of where they sit on this decision, it again is just us reiterating that we are their representatives, we're here to represent them, and we understand and hear what you said at the elector poll at the 2022 election. So I'll commend the motion to my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So a number of points to address with what's before us. Firstly, the officer's response that goes to the motion that was ratified on the 12th of December 22, which covers off a large chunk of this motion, which is noting the overwhelming 74% vote against the Sandy Bay campus relocation. I think that it's important to note as well that the Liberal Party's position at the state level is only in the instance of a majority Liberal government, which we do not have. So in fact, the state's position is not clear at this point in time. While many parties have made statements, it has not been through the rigorous process of the lower house and the legislative House of Assembly. So it is unclear, and it's fundamentally not our jurisdiction, as I've raised before. We can't control what the university does, and it's a dangerous precedent when it comes to planning to say, well, we accept this sort of development, that's fine, no problem, education, yep, good, tick, but not you. And I would put just a question to the appropriate officer. As I believe there is currently no position of the council on the UTAS move, if the council was to adopt a position, could there be difficulties in the planning process through the statutory planning that we would be unable to show that we had an open mind?
I'd like to answer that.
Do you want to pick as a lawyer or not at all?
Through you, Chair. And I'll defer to Director Abbey on the planning scheme if we get to that point. But look, it's quite relevant to the previous agenda item in that councillors wear many hats. So there's no planning matter on foot that I'm aware of at the moment. And councillors can wear the hat of councillor, land manager and a planning authority concurrently. But the test is around planning that you need to bring an open mind to the planning process. That may be problematic in some circumstances if an elected member has campaigned and advocated a fixed position on something that is then relevant to a planning consideration, because they may not be able to show they've brought an open mind and may have to turn their mind to the conflict provisions under the code. But I'm speaking in generics here because we don't have a planning application on foot, and we're talking hypothetically, but I think that answers the thrust of your question, Councillor Purcell.
Thank you very much. So what I took from that is that we could find ourselves in a sticky position with anything that UTAS puts forward, us being able to vote on. And if we did vote on it, it may well open us up to valid criticisms at TASCAT, which would see the decision overturned. And given the rest of the motion has been covered at the 12th of December 22 meeting, and given the potential legal risks moving forward as a planning authority, I would seek to put this motion without debate.
So that's a procedural motion, Councillor Posselt. Oh. I've got a procedural motion, but I haven't got a seconder for it. So is there a seconder? Deputy Lord Mayor. So that's to just put this to the vote now without further debate.
I just wanted to answer his question, that was all.
I don't think there's a need to. I think, did you get you got an answer from the professional officers? So.
There was an answer. There was a question he asked about the Liberal position.
Procedural motion to put the matter now, so I'm going to see if you want to vote support that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. No. Show of hands, all those in favour.
Oh, put motion, sorry, no.
In favour, I'm showing Posselt, Kitsos, Harvey, Deputy and the Mayor.
And against?
Dutta, Elliott, Coates, Lohberger, Bloomfield, Kelly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's passed. So continue the debate. Who was next to speak? Who would like to speak next? Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Excuse me. I just did want to talk a little bit about the Liberal Party policy, which both Councillor Coates and Posselt have brought up. I would note that at the time it was announced, I didn't believe it, and I went public on that. However, it is now in their 100-day plan. It's not. It does look like they are going to be bringing it forward, and on top of that, it's been updated to include keeping the STEM faculties on the campus, where they already have buildings, where it will be far cheaper for the university to upgrade those buildings, and where it will be far easier for them under the planning scheme because it is their own education zone. So I do welcome that policy. I know it's not a usual position for me to take, but I would actually welcome that updated policy from the Liberal Party, and just state that I hope it goes ahead. I will be supporting the rest of the motion. I don't know that the advice received from Mr Young was quite how it was interpreted by Councillor Posselt earlier. However, if there is anyone in the room that would have a problem in that particular position, I think it's me and me alone. And I'll accept that if that's the advice I get going forward in planning. So look, I will be supporting the motion, and I commend it to my colleagues. Thank you, Chair.
Lord Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah. Yes, Councillor.
Part 10 asks officers to report back to Council actions currently being taken to promote the interests of the community and oppose the UTAS relocation from Sandy Bay to the CBD. If that was Council's position, would this Council be able to actually process a development application, if that was the council's position, through you to the legal officer, I think, Lord Mayor, would that be the appropriate person?
Yes.
Well, certainly, again, it comes down to the dual hats, councillor, that you need to have an understanding of the responsibility in terms of policy making for the city versus statutory requirement under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act. So, again, if there was a situation where the majority of councillors felt that they had a conflict and couldn't bring an open mind, conflict of interest and couldn't bring an open mind, obviously that would be a problem that we would need to address. I haven't seen it, but it wouldn't logically flow just because the decision has been made from a community policy point of view that then you can't vote from a land use planning perspective. So,
if the council position was that we oppose UTAS coming into the city, I think that's a next step.
no, I hear what you're saying, but that the way the legislation is written, yes, you have to be able to delineate both. You are required to only consider the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act when you are considering a development application, and what decision you make with your elected member hat on under the Local Government Act is irrelevant.
Further discussion? Alderman Bloomfield.
Got confirmation of Liberal Party policy, which I will bring up again. Sandy Bay campus stays, and we amend the UTAS Act to prevent sale and disposition of the campus. That is of tonight. So that should allay any issue that Councillor Posselt had with the apparent outcome of the election. I also think too very much that we just had a debate about the difference between planning and chamber. Chamber does structural plans, and chamber does all sorts of other infrastructure and development things which are actually not necessarily a DA. A DA goes over into the planning room. So I think it's actually quite possible to do both. And in fact, it was really interesting, don't you remember, how it was with the Mount Nelson structural plan area, because the discussion actually had to be brought to a point where it was like the structural plan had, well, it's a given that CBD will be taking over UTAS, and that it's a given that this will all be, 7,800 people will be moving into this area, and then the community struck back. We had to listen, and moreover, we actually had to take it on, and that is effectively stating, well, geez, maybe UTAS isn't moving into the CBD like we thought. Maybe we should be considering all options. And this was inferring that we should be listening more to the community if they're not happy with us with that particular plan. So both actually happen at the same time. I think this is actually quite sound. And I feel too that ignoring 74% of the population of which we represent is probably something that we should take very seriously. Certainly I do, and I'm grateful to those who elected me. I do believe it was on that basis. And I think it's important that going forwards we take these types of things quite seriously. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Kelly.
Congratulate Councillor Coates for this motion. Look, public deserves to know where we stand on this, and you can only run so far from nailing your colours to the mast, and tonight people are going to be exposed to what they really think. You can only, you can run to the hounds and hunt with the foxes, but tonight's a night of reckoning, I think, and we've seen many elected members sort of go one way or the other. They'll smell the breeze and tippy-toe back, and they'll camouflage their way of thinking. But no, here it is tonight. Take your vote. The public will take notice, and I think it's a great thing that Councillor Coates has done. Thank you.
Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a few comments. Firstly, I think that a number of the points made in here are already, has been stated, is incorporated and included in the December 22 council meeting. So it's just a number of repetitions, in fact. Point number 2 is that point 1 of the motion very clearly states that we accept the results of the elective poll from October 2022. Now, this has already been done. It's very clearly stated in the administrative response. So the acceptance of the result is already there. It is my understanding that according to section 60E, it doesn't bind the council. I think that's my understanding. You know, so the results does not bind the council in a particular way. Now, during the last election, this was a hot issue. A number of us exposed ourselves, and a number of us maybe got in because of that particular vote. Now, I made my stand very clear from the very day it started. I will continue to support the community, and it's again very clearly mentioned in that December 13 points that we endorsed. So I find this really simply a repetition. We have already made these points. Our position is very clear, and we will continue to support the community. And the final point I want to make is this. With regards to the selling of the Sandy Bay campus property, the moving of the location from there to here, there are two issues. One is that the state government has now come into play, and only by the act, changing the act, they can bring this about. And they've undertaken that. It is not in our jurisdiction, it is in their jurisdiction. And we have stated that many, many times. And it is glad, and I'm happy to note here, that they are going to take this on board. And point number two for me to finish off is this, that we will continue to support what our position has been in December 2022. And I think most of the points in this motion is incorporated in there. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, I'll just make a couple of points. Yeah, I think there is a lot of repetition in this motion from our decision in December 2022. And I'm a little confused actually, because I did hear, I think it was Councillor Lohberger say that he supports the new Liberal position to support STEM development at Sandy Bay. And yet item 5 says that advised the Hobart City Council has never resolved to support the position of the Liberal government. So I'm a little confused about that, because I think, you know, everything goes through, debates go through chapters and things change, and I think the UTAS has had a really massive wake-up call because of the elector poll, because of now other state government parties opposing their proposals. But I think it's time to sort of get out of just this kind of black and white sort of save the campus, don't save the campus. I think everyone's moved on a little bit to a new level of thinking, which is what I think the Liberal government's position is around trying to find a compromise around the STEM facilities, perhaps trying to get some federal money and refurbish the facilities at the Sandy Bay campus, but of course not make the sort of foolish decision to try and move back the Menzies Centre or move back the art school or move back, you know, to stop the project they're doing in the forestry building. I mean, I think people would recognise that as quite impractical, because those sort of things have happened. So with any issue and any I guess city decision makers, you have to sort of keep looking at the new chapters and working out, well, where are things at now. So I personally advocated for the STEM campus to stay on Sandy Bay. So I couldn't support this motion. One, because it already states what we have already said and is just repetitive. And two, it actually says that we don't support that position, whereas I think that position is, at this point in history, the sensible compromise that is, you know, if there can be federal money sought so that the UTAS don't need to sell properties and they can refurbish the STEM campus, I think that would be a great outcome for the city, because, you know, we don't have to have this winner takes all. Like, I put up a poster a few years ago, and therefore it has to be my way or the highway. I think, you know, I think the best outcome for the city is going to be a nuanced approach as the project, as the story and all of the things change. And now with the state government so deeply involved, I do think we're kind of bit players in a way. But personally, I'm quite supportive of that direction, so I can't support this motion, which I think seems to rule out that option and say that we're not particularly enthusiastic about it. Thank you.
Well, Mayor, yeah, I think you're correct. No, I haven't.
Okay.
In your approach, I asked the question. In your approach, but what disappoints me is there's never been a deep debate. It's been a campaign rather than a debate. So it was, you know, it was a no campaign that was run rather than a deep and meaningful debate about what the possibilities could have been for the city and for the Sandy Bay campus. So it got so heated that it got shut down, basically. So people who had ideas weren't heard. What's happened in the city has been terrific. All the developments so far in the city have been world-class developments. There could be more world-class developments in the city over time. What happens in Sandy Bay could be all sorts of things. It could be educational facilities. It could be affordable housing as well on that campus in various locations as it fits in. But it's the deeper, more meaningful debate that I'm waiting for, where we discuss what the potential is for the university site in Sandy Bay and its relationship to the city. And we haven't had that. So tonight I won't be supporting this motion. I think the motion that came to council, which I also voted against and was booed for it as well, I think Councillor Basalt and I, weren't very popular on that night, but it's how I felt because I'm still waiting for the really adult debate about what happens with the university in Sandy Bay and its relationship to the city, and I look forward to that occurring I won't be part of the council at the time, but things will come to council and we need to be open-minded rather than ideological about how we assess developments into the future.
Okay, Councillor Coates, would you like to sum up?
Please, look, thank you for the contributions from all the elected members. As I said, the provenance of this was a genuine people who were contacting me a little bit confused about what the situation is now with UTAS and trying to clarify council's position. And as I said, and look, number 5, I would just note quickly, it's not that not to say that council ever supported a Liberal position or now supports a Liberal position. It's to advise that we never resolved to support a position the Liberals put out. So it's not, this motion is not calling us to now support the Liberal motion. I think as an organisation, as a representative group of the community, we do wear that hat and we can, as an organisation, come to our own position. And our position, in my view, and as was done on the December meeting, and I think it is appropriate that we now reiterate that because there is this confusion in the community. And I appreciate that some councillors at the time, and again tonight, can choose not to support it, but there is an expectation of the community, but when 74% say no, we reflect that. We are their advocacy body, we are their representative group. It is a debate, I agree. I don't know how much more you can get as a debate than asking everyone their view on it. And ultimately it was up for people on either side of that debate to convince voters of the merit of the argument. And look, I'm sure this will be a debate we'll still be having in 10 years' time. If there's one thing probably that...
30 seconds.
Can I just have an extra minute, please?
No, you're not allowed to.
Oh, okay, sorry. Look, I'll very simply say that Councillor Dodds made a good point. Most of this is just a reiteration, but I think it is timely because there was a genuine confusion in society and even at the officer level. And so I think it is timely and I think it is good, and we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet and put forward our view reflecting the views of the community. Thanks.
Okay, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Again say no. Show of hands, all those in favour.
Elliott, Councillor Purcell, your hands down, is it? Coates, Lohberger, Bloomfield, Kelly, and then the alternate. Right, thank you. Purcell, Dutta, I miss you too. Dutta, Purcell, Kitsos, Harvey, the Deputy, and the Mayor.
Lost.
Okay, moving on to the next motion, which is item 23, catchment management, from Councillor Lohberger and Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. I'll move that, Chair.
Second, Lord Mayor.
Look, I won't spend too much time on this. It's a long way through the agenda. I just wanted to make the point that the River Derwent catchment, it's under growing pressure from climate change, increased drinking water usage, increased industrial usage, increases in nutrient levels and algal blooms, and also the massive expansion of irrigation with further expansion planned and more water planned to be taken out of the river. This year is also the 10th anniversary of the state government decision to cancel the regular water testing of our rivers for agricultural chemical contamination, and I do recall from when they did do the testing that often the River Clyde in particular in our catchment had some significant contamination in it. Who would know anymore? Really, the problem is that there is no single authority to manage the Derwent catchment. It covers about 13% of the state. It's a huge catchment. The current management of it involves multiple councils, GBEs, private landholders, numerous government agencies and departments, all responsible for some but not all of the catchment. There are just too many cooks in the kitchen. It's made compliance a real issue, and there's little to no monitoring in the upper catchment. I think it's incumbent on us as the capital city council to actually lead on this issue and to express concern over the lack of a single management authority for that catchment. As I said, there are too many cooks in the catchment up there. In the Launceston area, the river catchments around Launceston have a single authority that does look at it. I don't know that for my purposes that's strong enough. I don't know that it does a lot of monitoring, and it doesn't have any compliance powers. I would think in order to be effective, this organisation needs to have some sort of power to monitor and enforce compliance, whether that's asking the EPA to do it, directing the EPA to do it, or indeed taking some powers from the EPA, which can be transferred that way by the EPA if it cares to. I do think the organisation does need teeth, and it needs the ability to monitor. But apart from that, I would call on my fellow councillors to support this. I think it's a really big issue. We all drink the water. There's no one in control up there, and really there is an awful lot of people getting their drinking water out of that river. Pretty much 80% of our water for the whole of southern Tasmania almost comes out of that river catchment in summer. It's a bit less in winter when there's more water coming off the mountain, but in summer we really rely on that single Brineston treatment plant. And I will finally make the point that in my view, Taswater is the meat in the sandwich on this particular issue. They stick their pipe in the river at Brineston. They have little to no control over what goes on in that upper catchment. And I think an authority to help with the catchment, or to carry out catchment management in that upper Derwent area, can only be of assistance for Taswater. So I commend it to my colleagues, and I will take my seat, Chair. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Kelly.
I won't repeat what Councillor Lohberger has said, but water, the most basic element we can have in our whole life for our families, our children, ourselves, and as the amount of people that involved with what's going into that Derwent estuary up there now, not the estuary, the Derwent River. We've got the local council, state government bodies, EPA, big businesses like Norski Skog, there's vineyards, orchards, fish farms, it goes on and on and on. And we've already seen when there's a problem, for instance, when there's the overflow from the waste plant or waste area in Plenty River, people running around wondering whose responsibility it was it EPA's, was it the councils? And this is the first step, I believe, in taking this matter seriously, because one day there will be a big disaster, whether it's through flooding and contamination in a major way, and this is the first step in addressing these big problems. So I commend this to you, and it's about time we did this. It's not new, nothing all around the world now. This matter's been taken much more seriously, and catchment authorities are there for a very good reason, and hopefully the support for this motion tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I want to commend both the councillors, Councillor Lohberger and Councillor Kelly, for this. And I'm of the view that most of us present here, I understand, would think similarly and support this. So without any further ado, I want to move a procedural motion that we put that to vote.
Seconder for that procedural motion, Councillor Elliott. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Show of hands, all those in favour.
Dutta, Elliott, Kitsos, and the deputy.
Against?
Zelt, Coates, Lohberger, Bloomfield, Kelly, Harvey, and the mayor.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? There is none. I'll put the motion.
I might sum up if that's okay,
All those
Lord
in
Mayor.
favour say
I just wanted to say I support the motion. I think it's really important to work in a catchment sense rather than in just a river, but all the rivers that form the catchment. We need a coordinated process, and I commend you both for bringing this forward. I think it's a sensible approach. So there you go.
20 seconds, yes, I'll be quick. Really, I'm just going to mention what I forgot to say in my introduction, which was that this has, the Water Committee of the Council has looked at this issue as well, and they are quite supportive of a catchment management authority as well. So this has gone through my committee too. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Carried unanimously. Item 24 is the last motion for the night from Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. Yes, so this motion really focuses on giving, I guess, individual elected members the opportunity to be on the record with how they, what their views are in relation to what's happened to the Crowther statue in terms of its vandalism, also to show their support. Oh, yes. Sorry, I moved motion to second.
Sorry, Alderman Bloomfield.
Yeah, so 1 to 3 is about elected members being able to show their support for the repair of the statue, their individual condemnation of the vandalism, and also their support for a new home for the statue being found, obviously once it's repaired, that facilitates safe and secure access to the statue. Point number 4, I'll actually seek to remove the reference to the June meeting in light of the admin's response, because they may need longer than that. So it'll be request officers prepare a report for the council that addresses, and the points under that remain. So like I said, as we all know, the statue's been terribly vandalised, and there was various media releases went out on that, but as individual elected members, there might actually be that there's some views around the table where people don't actually condemn the vandalism. There might also be views that some elected members don't support the timely and professional repair of the statue. Also, I understand, because obviously this project around the removal of the statue started before I was elected, but in all of the reading I could find, there was references to negotiations with collecting institutions going back a year or two, and that seems to have dropped away. So I wanted to gauge the council's view on that. It does agree that the statue should find a new permanent home that isn't the valuables collection, that the statue is actually publicly available. And on that that topic, I might actually ask through you, Lord Mayor, to the relevant director. The statue's obviously down now, so and pending any appeal to the Supreme Court. In light of that, has TMAG been asked to provide if it would provide a new home for the statue? Have they been asked, and what was their response? TMAG.
Lord Mayor, given that there is an appeal period, it's my understanding that there are no steps have been taken to implement the permit, other than the unfortunate illegal act that's been taken. There has been an engagement with the Tasmanian Heritage Commission, who have confirmed that any works that we've done to sort of fix up that issue are treated as emergency works rather than works under the permit. So the answer to your question, as I understand it, is no.
Okay. Right, so at this point, that's interesting, okay. And can we also have an update on if any actions have already started around the repair to the statue? Any preliminary work?
Through Lord Mayor, no, they haven't.
Okay, thank you. So in point number 4, at the appropriate time, after the appeal period, and also once the council's had a chance to discuss with the Conservator about what happens next. Point 4 is really about the next steps, so where to from here. And one of the things that you'll see at in the last dot point there is around the feasibility of the statue being offered for sale to the community. Because I have heard from, especially from descendants of Crowthers interstate, that they are very keen on facilitating, if the council isn't going to provide public access, they're very keen on facilitating something where the community purchase the statue back. I understand that that isn't permissible under the current planning permit, but we've all seen that if you want to do something, it can be made possible. So I'm hoping that in a future report, which outlines for us the future of the statue, when it's going to be repaired and if there's going to be a permanent home for it and what that home might be. Also some commentary around if the statue was to be considered for sale, this is the steps we would have to go through. Obviously the Heritage Tasmania and all that sort of stuff. So I suspect that we will probably need to vote on these items separately, and that's fine with me.
I don't think we need to vote.
Okay.
Lord Mayor, I can assure you that I was really disappointed when I saw the act of vandalism to cut the statue down, and I thought it was an incredibly selfish act. And I was very much looking forward to a ceremony, a process. We've been going through a process for what, 2 years plus?
4 years.
4 years. 4 years to get to this position. And I think the council should be really proud of the process that it ran. It was thorough, it was detailed, and it was appropriate. We did a lot of research, a lot of background. It was debated numerous times in this council, and the decision was recently upheld in the tribunal that we made a correct decision. So, that's what we feel. But unfortunately and unceremoniously, the night before that decision was made, it was cut down. And that denied us all the opportunity to be part of a ceremonial removal of that statue, which I thought was an important part. So I feel a bit robbed that this got cut down before we had a chance to do that. I was looking forward to seeing that statue removed and still continuing the process of how it was going to be stored, curated, or whatever the next phase was, as well as the installation of an alternative on that site. And cutting it down really hurt. It was just around the time, another thing that occurred at the same time, which really annoyed me, and that was the discovery of bones at the Hutchins School. And those bones were unceremoniously collected and deposited at the TAC. And those bones were deemed to be from pre-colonial times. And it was such disrespectful, such a disrespectful way of treating those bones. And the way the statue got cut down, I think that was also slightly disrespectful to our process of removing the statue. So those who cut it down, I think you should feel a bit of shame about this. It should have been done through a proper ceremonial process that we all could have witnessed, and it would have been part of the history of removing this statue rather than unceremoniously being cut off at the ankles and dropped onto the grass. So while I'm not sure how I'm going to vote on all of these, 1 to 4, I'm really annoyed that the process occurred the way it did, and I'd like to continue the process thoroughly through the council to the end, basically.
Further discussion? Councillor Coates.
Look, I agree with Councillor Harvey's points. I would have also liked to have attended the wake for Dr. William Crowther statue. I think that this unfortunate aspects has happened has robbed a lot of people in our community of an opportunity to coming to terms with a decision. And I think as a council, we should really get behind this motion. If we don't speak out when things like this happen, we run the risk of it repeating. We've had a lot of discussion tonight about decisions that some of us agree or disagree with. But I think when acts like this happen, it is appropriate that we take a very firm and a very strong view. And look, I read the motion and I think it makes 100% 100% sense, and I'm supportive of it all. And you know, there are a lot of those in the community that are not happy with the decision around Crowther, and I think the unfortunate vandalism that occurred has just sort of put a little bit of salt in those wounds. So, look, I support the motion, and I would hope all of you do as well.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not able to support all the elements of the motion, but I do support number 1. And I usually don't write things down, but because of the sensitivity and the nature of it, I've written something so that in my free-for-all sometimes, on the spur of the moment, to think on my feet and speak, I don't want it to be misinterpreted in any way. Therefore, I make the following points. The Council must note that the vandalism of the Crowther statue was and has been explicitly, unquestionably, and undeniably condemned, both by our Lord Mayor and our CEO. This act was unlawful, period. However, it is noteworthy to recognize that with many societal issues, there are diverse perspectives. It is understood that some First Nations people view the statue as abhorrent and do not consider its defacement as vandalism. I was present at the Franklin Square with another elected member on the 15th of the morning when the fallen statue was removed and taken away, and an alternative view was expressed while we were there. Some First Nations people regard the Crowther statue and similar monuments as symbols of colonial oppression, violence, and cultural genocide. The figures depicted often played significant roles in the marginalization and suffering of the indigenous communities. The debate over the vandalism of statues, especially those representing colonial or controversial historical figures, involves conflicting viewpoints that reflect deeper societal and historical tensions. An ethical debate also exists regarding the methods of achieving social justice. Some argue that vandalism is a form of civil disobedience that brings urgent issues to light, while others believe that lawful and constructive methods are more effective and ethical. Those who condemn the destruction of statues emphasize the importance of upholding the rule of law. Vandalism, irrespective of its target, is an unlawful act that undermines social order and the principles of democratic society. Therefore, I believe we in this chamber undeniably condemn the vandalism. These perspectives underscore the complexities of our history is remembered and commemorated in public spaces. One viewpoint emphasizes the legal and the lawful approaches to handling controversial historical symbols, while the other view directs action as a necessary response to enduring historical injustices. This conversation reflects broader societal debates about reconciling past atrocities and creating a future that honors all voices and experiences. Like a planning committee decision, like many other decisions, we hold different views. And there are different views out there, and I've heard it. But for me, individually, I will condemn it because it was unlawful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lord Mayor.
Yeah, look, I don't want to speak for too long, but I do understand some of the sentiments that have been said, and I agree with aspects of what Councillor Harvey has said, aspects of what Councillor Duttor has said, and also aspects of what Councillor Coates has said. I do want to just make two points, which is going to be quoted directly from the administrative response. The City of Hobart condemns vandalism in all forms and is deeply disappointed with the vandalism against the Crowther statue undertaken in May 2024. The repair of the statue will be guided by the advice of the qualified material conservator in relation to all elements of the monument, the bronze component and the sandstone plinth. And after hearing what has been said around the table, I think I'd take on board what Councillor Elliott has said and would like for each of the points to be voted on separately. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I condemn the vandalism of the Crowther statue for the grounds that Councillor Dutta has put forward, which is that it is illegal behaviour. I think it's important to recognise that at the time that the council took the decision to commence the proceedings to remove the Crowther statue, there was a global movement happening to pull down bronze statues of oppressors. And we are a pretty civilised country in the scheme of things, but many other countries saw their statues pulled down in a similar way to what we finally saw Crowther fall a couple of weeks ago. And there have been waves like this, global waves like this before during the English Reformation, the French Revolution and the fall of the Soviet Union. All of these actions have occurred as a statement from the people and a statement from the oppressed. And as I said, I condemn the vandalism of the statue, but it now has a different story that it didn't have before this happened, and it didn't have before we decided to take it down as a council. And so, in light of that, I would move a foreshadowed motion that officers prepare a report for how best to move forward with the statue, with the intent of understanding if repair of the statue is actually the right thing to do. It may well be, I don't know, but I think that liaising with appropriate stakeholders, including heritage, is worthwhile to understand if telling the whole truth and in the interest of truth-telling, that the feet stay off. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not an expert, but I would seek to understand that before making a decision to repair it. So I would move that motion foreshadowed in the context that this is an event that has occurred. It was an illegal event, but it is part of truth-telling, as were the bones taken by Dr. William Crowther of William Land, was also illegal, and that has been part of the truth-telling as well.
Advice on the question of the repair of the statues. My understanding is an obligation. It's not something that we can choose not to do. It's part of the planning permit.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We're in slightly uncharted territory, but I imagine that we would, as a council, take steps to comply with the permit, and that would involve removing the feet and then repairing the statue.
If I may, Lord Mayor, just a question. Given that the planning permit was issued while the statue was whole, I feel like it's an unknown without asking the questions whether or not that is the case. Do we have?
Planning permit's a planning permit. We'd have to change the planning. Yeah, I guess yeah, we probably need to get some advice on it, but my understanding is a planning permit's a planning permit, and you'd have to change the planning permit to say, we don't want to repair the statue.
Yes, and that's what this report would seek to do, is to clarify what the steps would be and what the council's position would be on that should that possibility arise.
Ms Abbey, what was your thoughts?
Through your chair, we would have to consider the suggestion by Councillor Posselt. It is possible that it could be treated as a minor amendment to the permit, but given all of the controversy that's unfolded, I think that it would probably be difficult to overcome the tests that you need to meet in order to have a minor amendment, which would mean a new planning permit if that was going to be the way forward.
Alderman Bloomfield?
I really wasn't going to speak to this, but to be fair, the community is massively divided. There are people extraordinarily passionate on both sides. And to allow the statue to remain broken as it is actually quite inappropriate in this circumstance. I feel that if we want to walk forwards, we need to respect both sides. We need to allow them to find dignity in their way forwards, and that means that that statue, however you may feel about it, needs to be made whole, and then we walk forward and establish wherever it's going to go is where it goes. Whatever happens, happens. But we don't start taking sides. This is not appropriate for this room today.
Further discussion? So I've had a request.
Just a question. With regards to Councillor Passal's foreshadowed motion, is that still on foot or?
Only if this doesn't
Okay.
get up.
All right. I just need the wording of that. That's all.
Can I just seek clarification? I think we're going to separate the items. So which particular one is it that will lead to the foreshadowed?
I think it would be 2. If 2 gets up, then we don't need a second one. A different report on the non-repair.
What was the alternative for number 1?
There isn't one. Okay, so Councillor Elliott, did you want to sum up?
No, that's fine, thank you. We can take them individually.
And you do want them to take, you're happy to take them to be taken individually, okay. All right, so number 1, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 2, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.
No.
Show of hands, all those in favour?
Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield, Kelly, and in the alternate, and Lord Mayor, sorry, I missed you. And in the alternate, okay, Passelt, Kitsos, I missed Dutta, sorry, I'm having a shocker, aren't I? Kitsos, Dutta, Passelt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, and the deputy. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 4. I'm showing 5, 5. Who have I missed? No, who have I missed?
Want to do it again?
Sorry, I'm missing Lohberger's vote. Where do I? Sorry. It was
Put our hands twice
Okay. Item 3, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no.
No.
Show of hands, all those in favour?
Favour, Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield, Kelly, and the noes. Dutta, Passelt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the deputy, and the mayor.
Lost, I think.
Yes.
And last one, item 4, all those in favour say aye.
Sorry, was June changed?
Yeah, June was taken out.
I think, yeah. So June's taken out, so it's but it's that, there may be other things that the officers were planning to come to us on, I'm not sure.
I've got a note from Councillor Elliott saying to omit the bit referencing June.
Okay. All right, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
And say no. Show of hands, all those in favour?
Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield, Kelly.
Against?
Dutta, Passelt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the deputy, and the mayor.
Okay. So, do we have to vote on that? No.
No.
So the motion, parts 1 and 2 of the motion have been supported.
No, you don't need the alternate.
Only one has been supported.
Can get up to with not.
Oh, 4 didn't get up.
Oh, I see, okay, so there is a foreshadowed for the number 2. So you need to tell us what the number 2 is, the foreshadowed motion is again.
Certainly. So that a report be prepared by officers outlining possibilities for the repair or not repair of the statue in consultation with key stakeholders. Does that make sense? Yeah, including processes if it is deemed by key stakeholders, or maybe that should just be as part of it, and including the process if it was to remain in two pieces, what that would look like. I think Mr. Young is madly writing something out that's...
Okay, I think I've got the bones of this. A report outlining the possibilities for repair or not of the statute with regard to professional advice and the views of key stakeholders.
And regarding process.
And process.
And process from here on in.
Part 1 and Part 2 process.
Well, is the process already done? We already know what the process is.
I don't know.
No, we don't.
Okay. Because we don't know what the process is.
Okay.
That's what we just voted down on number 4.
So, would you like me to speak at all, Lord Mayor?
If you like, yeah.
Look, I'll just keep it really brief. I think this is just...
Is there a mover as seconder for your motion?
I'll second.
Lord Mayor.
This is just an information gathering exercise, is to make sure that we act in good faith with the most information that we have, because an event has occurred, and I don't think that it's wise to just continue with the same course of action despite a major event happening that may alter the course of that action. Once we have all of the information, we may decide to stay exactly on the same course that we were on, but without all of the information, I think it would be short-sighted to continue on that course when another course may in fact be a better outcome for society. I don't know the answer. We'll find out in the report.
All right, if there's no discussion on that part, that foreshadowed motion, or that motion, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Again say no. Show of hands. All those in favour.
Dutta, Passelt, Kitsos, Lohberger, Harvey, the Deputy and the Lord Mayor.
Against.
Elliott, Coates, Bloomfield, Kelly.
All right. Sorry. Is that everything we need to do with that one?
I believe so,
Yeah,
yes.
Item 25 is lapsed because Alderman Zurko's not here. Would someone like to note the responses to questions without notice? Item 26. Moved by Deputy, second by Councillor Harvey. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Are there any questions without notice?
Yes.
Coates?
Cool. Question through to, I think it's to you, the Lord Mayor. Does Council support the University of Tasmania's proposal to relocate the Sandy Bay campus into Hobart's Central Business District?
Is that a trick question? Didn't we just
No,
vote?
there's a lot of confusion in the community in the answer to that question. So.
The Council moved a motion on the 12th of December 2022, which I would refer people to, and that's the decision of the Council.
I've got a further question. This is through to the appropriate officer, I think, Wes. On a previous item tonight, there was discussion in regards to the wearing of hats and potentially not being able to sit on a decision if you'd gone to an election with a preordained position. And on an item for debate, we had someone quote out position statements that people would put out. I'm just wanting to understand around conflict of interest. So can we make decisions on items if we've put out very clear statements presupposing our decision on that item prior to election?
So the answer I gave earlier was in generalisations on the assumption that we had a relevant matter to consider as a planning authority. I mean, under the Local Government Act, it's ultimately up to the member themselves to determine if they have a perceived or actual conflict and act accordingly, rather than officers advising them of such. The consequence of if they get the decision wrong is someone may elect to bring a code complaint for failure to manage or identify a conflict. I mean, without further specifics, it's very hard to give advice on a particular scenario, but I think where I leave it is that the relevant consideration is it's up to individual councillors to manage their perceived or actual conflicts as identified under the Act.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll ask someone to move that we move into the closed.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Dutta, seconded by Councillor Harvey. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. carried unanimously. We'll now move into the closed.
Move that one.